She brought the wine list, her hands steadier than she felt. Your fiancé called to confirm your reservation. The hostess had mentioned earlier. Zuri's mind raced. The men had arrived before him. They'd positioned themselves perfectly. They were waiting. Sir, would you like me to recommend something? Zuri asked, her voice low. The Bordeaux, 2015. She scribbled on her order pad, her heart hammering. This was insane. This was none of her business. She should just serve the wine and let whatever was going to happen, happen. But the man by the window had just received a phone call. He nodded once, made a subtle hand signal to the others. They were moving into position. Zuri's pen moved across the pad, muscle memory from 8 months of taking orders. But she wasn't writing down wine selections. Her hand shook as she wrote. Your fiancé sold you out. For men. Exit through kitchen. Now. She returned with the wine, her pulse so loud in her ears she could barely hear the classical music playing overhead. She poured with exaggerated care, then set the bottle down and slipped the note under his glass. Their eyes met. 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours. She saw the exact moment he read the words, saw something flicker in those cold eyes, surprise, calculation, then grim understanding. His expression didn't change, but his body language shifted almost imperceptibly. Thank you, he said, his voice giving nothing away. He stood with casual elegance, placing a thick stack of bills on the table. Excellent service, he said, just loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. Then he walked toward the restroom with the same unhurried pace he'd entered with. Zuri watched from behind the bar, gripping the counter. The 4 men remained seated, waiting. 30 seconds passed. A minute. Then one of them stood, frowning. He walked toward the restroom, returned quickly, and made a sharp gesture to the others. Chaos erupted. All 4 men bolted toward the kitchen, hands reaching for weapons. Zuri dropped behind the bar as gunshots exploded through the restaurant. Customers screamed, diving under tables. Glass shattered. Kim Soo-jin was shouting into a phone, calling the police. Zuri's whole body shook as she pressed herself against the bar, hands over her head. What had she done? What had she just involved herself in? Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. The gunmen fled through the front entrance, disappearing into Seoul's neon-lit streets. By the time the police arrived, the restaurant was a disaster of overturned tables and traumatized diners, but no bodies. No blood. Just chaos and fear. And Kim Hyun-woo was gone. Zuri just saved a dangerous man's life. But in a world where no good deed goes unpunished, what will it cost her? Stay with me to find out, because this story is just getting started. Please like, comment, and subscribe because it helps this channel grow. 3 days later, Zuri was trying to convince herself that life could return to normal. Her hands had finally stopped shaking. She could sleep for more than 2 hours at a time. Azure Moon had reopened, and she'd returned to work because rent didn't pay itself, and her teaching job barely covered her expenses. Girl, you should have minded your business, Grace Williams said through the video call, her face filling Zuri's phone screen. Grace had been in Korea for 2 years, teaching at an international school, and had become Zuri's closest friend in Seoul. I couldn't just let him die, Grace. Zuri sat on her small apartment floor, surrounded by student papers she was supposed to be grading. He's literally the Korean mafia. You know that, right? Like, actual organized crime. Not some Robin Hood stealing from the rich. These people are dangerous, Zuri. I know. But what was I supposed to do? Watch 4 men execute someone in front of me. You were supposed to duck and let professionals handle it. Now you're on their radar. Both sides probably know who you are. A knock on the door made Zuri jump, her phone clattering to the floor. Zuri? You okay? Grace's voice came from the phone. Another knock, firmer this time. Someone's at my door, Zuri whispered. Don't open it. Look through the peephole first. Zuri crept to the door, heart pounding. She pressed her eye to the peephole and felt the floor drop out from under her. Kim Hyun-woo stood in her hallway, flanked by 2 large men in dark suits. He looked directly at the peephole, as if he could see her through it. Miss Smith, his voice was calm through the door. I know you're there. I only want to talk. How did you find me? Zuri called back, not opening the door. I needed to know who saved my life. Well, now you know. You can leave. Silence. Then, please. 5 minutes. Against every instinct, every warning, Grace was probably screaming through the phone on the floor. Zuri unlocked the door. She opened it just wide enough to see him clearly. Up close, without the chaos of the restaurant, Kim Hyun-woo was even more striking. Sharp cheekbones, dark eyes that seemed to see everything, an air of controlled power that was both terrifying and magnetic. He held out an envelope. Even without opening it, Zuri could see it was thick with cash. "I don't want your money," she said immediately. His eyebrows rose slightly, the first real expression she'd seen on his face. "Everyone wants something, Miss Smith. Name your price." "There is no price. I saw someone in danger. I helped. That's it. That's all it was. In my world, no one does anything without expecting something in return." "Well, I'm not from your world, Mr. Kim." Zuri started to close the door. "Good night." His hand caught the door, not forcefully, but enough to stop it. "Wait. Please. I need to understand." "What?" "Because it was the right thing to do. Because nobody deserves to die over dinner. Because I'm not the kind of person who can watch someone get hurt and do nothing." She met his eyes. "Is that really so hard to believe?" He stared at her for a long moment, and for the first time, she saw something crack in that controlled facade. Confusion. Maybe even vulnerability. "Yes," he said quietly. "It is." "Then I'm sorry your life has been so empty of basic human decency. Now please leave me alone." This time when she closed the door, he didn't stop her. Zuri leaned against the closed door, her heart hammering. Through the peephole, she watched Kim Hyun-woo stand motionless for a full minute before finally turning away. His bodyguards followed him down the hallway, and only when she heard the elevator ding did Zuri allow herself to breathe. She picked up her phone from the floor. Grace's face filled the screen, eyes wide with panic. "Are you insane? Please tell me you did not just talk to him." "He's gone now," Zuri said, sliding down to sit with her back against the door. "Zuri Smith, you listen to me. That man is dangerous. I don't care how pretty his face is or how polite he seemed. Men like that don't just show up at your door to say thank you. They want something. He wanted to pay me. I said no." Grace's mouth fell open. "You said no? To how much?" "I didn't look. I don't want his money, Grace. I just want to go back to my normal, boring life of teaching English and serving overpriced wine to rich people." "Yeah. Well, I don't think that's going to happen now, babe. You saved a mafia boss. That's not something you just walk away from." But Zuri tried. She really did. The next morning, she went to her teaching job at the language academy, worked with her students on their pronunciation, and tried to pretend everything was normal. She was in the middle of explaining the difference between beach and a word her students kept accidentally saying instead when the receptionist knocked on her classroom door. "Teacher Zuri, there's a delivery for you." The delivery was a flower arrangement so massive it took 2 delivery men to carry it into the teacher's lounge. White roses, orchids, and lilies arranged in an elaborate display that probably cost more than her monthly salary. Her students crowded around, squealing with excitement. "Teacher has a boyfriend," one of her 6th graders announced. "I do not have a boyfriend," Zuri insisted, searching frantically for a card. When she found it, the message was simple: "Thank you for my life. KHW." She called the flower shop immediately. "I need to return this arrangement." "I'm sorry, ma'am, but it's already been paid for. The gentleman was very specific that it should be delivered today. Then donate it to a hospital or something." "I don't want it." Her co-teachers stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Who refused flowers like that? The next day, a brand new iPhone was delivered to Azure Moon during her evening shift. Top of the line, still in the box, with a note: "You saved my life with 7 words. Let me improve yours." Zuri returned it the same day. On the 3rd day, she received a call from her student loan company. "Miss Smith, we're calling to confirm that your account has been paid in full. All $47,000. Zuri's blood turned to ice. "What? By who?" "The payment came from Kim Holdings International." "Is there a problem?" "Yes, there's a problem. I didn't authorize that payment. I want it reversed immediately." "Ma'am, we can't reverse a legitimate payment." Zuri hung up and immediately marched to Azure Moon, even though she wasn't scheduled to work. She knew he'd come. Men like Kim Hyun-woo didn't make grand gestures without wanting to see the results. She was right. He arrived at 8 p.m., alone this time, and sat at the same table where she'd saved his life. When she approached, her anger must have been written clearly on her face because his bodyguards tensed. "You can't just pay off my student loans without asking," she hissed, keeping her voice low to avoid making a scene. "Why not?" He seemed genuinely confused. You saved my life. That's worth far more than $47,000. It's not about the money. Don't you understand that? I didn't save you so you'd owe me something. I saved you because it was the right thing to do. Because you're a human being who was in danger. Then why are you angry? Because you're treating this like a business transaction. Like everything can be solved by throwing money at it. Kim Hyun-woo leaned back in his chair, studying her with those dark, unreadable eyes. In my experience, everything can be solved with money. Well, your experience is limited. Zuri crossed her arms. I want you to stop. No more gifts. No more payments. No more showing up at my apartment or my workplace. Just leave me alone. I can't do that. Why not? Because I owe you a debt. You don't owe me anything. In my world, I do. He stood, and even in the elegant restaurant, he seemed to tower over everything. Let me take you to dinner. One meal. A proper thank you. Then, if you still want me to leave you alone, I will. No. Coffee then. No. Tea. His voice softened slightly. Just tea. 1 hour. That's all I'm asking. Zuri wanted to say no again. Every logical part of her brain was screaming to refuse, to run, to get as far away from this man and his dangerous world as possible. But there was something in his eyes, a loneliness that she recognized because she saw it in her own mirror every morning. Why is this so important to you? She asked quietly. He was quiet for a long moment. Because in 10 years, you're the first person who's done something for me without wanting anything in return. I need to understand why. Kim Soo-jin appeared at Zuri's elbow. Is everything all right, Zuri? It's fine, Zuri said, not taking her eyes off Hyun-woo. Then, against every instinct, 1 tea. 1 hour. Then you leave me alone forever. Something flickered in his expression, relief, maybe, or satisfaction. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. I'll send a car. I'll take the subway. Just text me the address. She pulled out her order pad and scribbled her number. 1 hour, Mr. Kim. That's it. As she walked away, she heard his assistant Lee Taeyong whisper, Boss, you're smiling. Zuri didn't look back, but she could feel his eyes on her all the way to the kitchen. That night, she called Grace in a panic. I agreed to have tea with him. You what? I know. I'm an idiot. But Grace, you should have seen his face. He looked so lost, like he genuinely couldn't understand why someone would help him without expecting payment. That's because he's a criminal, Zuri. His whole life is transactions and betrayals and violence. You can't save him. I'm not trying to save him. I'm just having tea. 1 hour, then I'm done. Famous last words, Grace muttered. Just promise me you'll meet him in a public place. And keep your location sharing on. And text me every 15 minutes. You watch too many crime dramas. And you don't watch enough. These things never end well for the innocent waitress who catches the mafia boss's attention. But the next day, when Zuri received the address, a traditional tea house in Bukshan, one of Seoul's historic neighborhoods, she felt a flutter of something that wasn't quite fear. Anticipation, maybe. Curiosity. She changed her outfit 3 times before settling on simple jeans and a cream sweater. This wasn't a date. It was just tea. Just 1 hour to satisfy his need for closure. Then she could go back to her normal life. The tea house was tucked away in a quiet alley, surrounded by traditional hanok houses with their elegant curved roofs. When Zuri arrived, Kim Hyun-woo was already there, sitting in a private room with low tables and floor cushions. But he wasn't wearing a suit. Instead, he had on dark jeans and a simple black sweater that made him look younger, more human. He stood when she entered, and for a moment, they just looked at each other. You came, he said, and she could hear genuine surprise in his voice. I keep my word, Mr. Kim. Hyun-woo, please. We're not in a business meeting. Hyun-woo, she corrected, settling onto a cushion across from him. And you can call me Zuri. He sat back down, and she noticed his hands weren't quite steady as he poured the tea. Kim Hyun-woo, the man who'd walked into a restaurant full of armed assassins with complete calm, was nervous about having tea with her. I wasn't sure you'd actually come, he admitted. I almost didn't. Zuri accepted the cup he offered. But I was curious. About what? About why this matters so much to you. Why you couldn't just accept that someone helped you and move on. Hyun-woo was quiet for a long moment, steam from his tea rising between them. Do you know what it's like to live in a world where every smile hides an agenda? Where every kindness comes with a price tag? No, Zuri said honestly. I don't. I inherited my father's empire when I was 19. Too young, too naive, too trusting. I learned quickly that trust gets you killed. That affection is a weakness. That the only currency that matters is power. He looked at her. And then you came along and shattered everything I thought I knew about human nature. Zuri held his gaze, seeing past the controlled exterior to something raw underneath. I didn't shatter anything. I just did what any decent person would do. That's exactly my point. Hyun-woo set down his teacup. In my world, there are no decent people, only survivors. Then maybe you're in the wrong world. The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Hyun-woo's expression shifted, something like pain crossing his features before he locked it away again. It's not that simple. I can't just walk away from who I am. I'm not asking you to. Zuri sipped her tea, the warmth spreading through her chest. I'm just saying that maybe your world isn't as absolute as you think it is. Maybe there's room for more than just transactions and power plays. Is that why you came to Korea? Looking for something different? The question caught her off guard. How did you? I looked into your background. I needed to know who saved my life. He held up a hand when she bristled. I know. It's invasive. But in my position, I can't afford to trust blindly. And what did your research tell you? That Zuri Smith, 26, from Atlanta, Georgia, has been in Seoul for 8 months. Teaching English at a language academy, waitressing at Azure Moon on evenings and weekends. Bachelor's degree in education. Student loans that are now paid off, whether you like it or not. He paused. And that you left America 2 years ago, right after your younger brother died in a car accident. Zuri's breath caught. The familiar ache bloomed in her chest, the one that never fully went away. You had no right. I know. I'm sorry. And he actually sounded it. But I needed to understand. Why Korea? Why run halfway around the world? She should have stood up and left. Should have thrown her tea in his face for digging into her private pain. But something about the quiet intimacy of the tea house, the genuine curiosity in his eyes, made her answer instead. I didn't run. I escaped. The words came slowly, each one a small surrender. My brother Marcus was 19. Freshman in college, whole life ahead of him. Then some drunk driver ran a red light, and she swallowed hard. I couldn't stay in Atlanta. Everything reminded me of him. My mom needed me to be strong, to move on, but I couldn't breathe there. So I found a teaching program in Seoul, and I left. Do you regret it? Sometimes. On his birthday, or when something funny happens and I reach for my phone to text him before I remember. She met Hyun-woo's eyes. But mostly, I'm grateful. Korea gave me space to grieve without everyone watching. Space to figure out who I am without him. Hyun-woo reached across the table, his hand hovering near hers, but not quite touching. Grief is a strange companion. Always there, but you learn to live around it. You sound like you know from experience. My father died when I was 19. Heart attack in his office. I found him. His voice was flat, practiced, like he'd told this story so many times it had lost its emotional weight. Everyone said I was lucky, inheriting everything at such a young age, becoming one of Seoul's most powerful men overnight. No one asked if I wanted it, if I was ready, if I'd rather have had my father back. Zuri's hand moved before she could think, covering his. I'm sorry. He stared at their joined hands like he'd never seen such a thing before. You keep apologizing for things that aren't your fault, and doing kind things without expecting anything back. You're an anomaly, Zuri Smith. Or maybe you've just been surrounded by the wrong people. A small smile tugged at his lips, the first real smile she'd seen from him. It transformed his face, made him look younger, less burdened. Maybe. They talked for 2 hours, though Zuri had promised herself just one. Hyun-woo asked about her students, and she told him about little Minji who couldn't pronounce her R's, and Taeho who insisted on calling her Teacher Beautiful instead of Teacher Zuri. He listened with genuine interest, asking questions, laughing at her stories. In return, he shared carefully guarded pieces of himself. How he'd wanted to be an architect before his father died. How he collected vintage watches but never wore them because they felt too precious. How he sometimes drove to the coast at midnight just to hear the ocean. Why midnight? Zuri asked. Because that's the only time I can go without bodyguards, without people recognizing me. Just me and the water and the stars. He looked at her. Sounds pathetic, doesn't it? No. It sounds lonely. The words settled between them, honest and terrible. Hyun-woo's mask slipped completely, and for a moment, She saw the scared 19-year-old boy who'd lost everything and had to become someone he never wanted to be. I should go, Zuri said softly, though she didn't move. It's been more than an hour. I know. He didn't move either. Will you see me again? Hyun-woo. Not as a debt. Not as payment. Just as two people who enjoy talking to each other. Every rational part of Zuri's brain screamed no. This man was dangerous. His world was violence and betrayal and secrets that could get her killed. But sitting across from him in the quiet tea house, watching vulnerability flicker in his dark eyes, she couldn't find the word. I don't think that's a good idea, she said instead. Why not? Because you're who you are, and I'm just trying to live a quiet life. What if I don't want to be who I am anymore? The words came out raw, unguarded. What if I'm tired of the violence and the paranoia and the loneliness? Then prove it. Zuri stood, and he rose with her. You want to see me again? Show me you're more than your reputation. Show me the man who drives to the ocean at midnight. She left before he could respond, before she could see the hope or hurt in his expression. But as she walked through Buckshin's traditional alleys, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Tomorrow night. Midnight. I'll show you the ocean. She should have blocked the number. Should have deleted the message and forgotten about Kim Hyun-woo and his lonely midnight drives. Instead, she saved his contact and spent the entire next day wondering if she was making the biggest mistake of her life. Grace certainly thought so. You're going to meet him at midnight? Alone? At the ocean? Zuri, this is literally how horror movies start. He's not going to hurt me. How do you know? I know. And she did. Despite everything. Despite his reputation and his world and the danger that surrounded him, she knew Hyun-woo wouldn't hurt her. Besides, I'll share my location with you. And I'll check in every hour. Every 30 minutes, Grace countered. And at the first sign of weirdness, you run. But when Hyun-woo picked her up that night, driving himself in a modest black sedan instead of his usual chauffeur-driven luxury car, there was no weirdness. Just him, in jeans and a leather jacket, looking more like a college student than a crime lord. No bodyguards? She asked as she climbed into the passenger seat. I told you. Midnight is when I get to be just me. He pulled into traffic, heading toward the coast. Though I have to admit, it feels different with company. Good different or bad different? I'm not sure yet. They drove in comfortable silence, Seoul's lights giving way to darker highways and eventually the vast emptiness of the coast. The moon hung low over the East Sea, painting the water silver. Hyun-woo parked on a secluded beach, and they walked along the shore, waves washing over their bare feet. I used to come here with my father, Hyun-woo said quietly. Before everything changed. He'd bring me fishing, and we'd talk about everything and nothing. He told me once that the ocean was the only thing more powerful than money or influence. That it reminded him to stay humble. Sounds like he was a good man. He was. Before the empire consumed him too. Hyun-woo stopped walking, staring out at the endless water. I look at my life and I wonder, is this all there is? Power and wealth and people who smile to my face while plotting behind my back. Zuri turned to face him, the ocean breeze whipping her hair around her face. It doesn't have to be, doesn't it? I've built this life on very specific foundations. I can't just walk away. Why not? Because people depend on me. Because I have responsibilities. Because, he stopped, frustrated. Because I don't know how to be anyone else. Then learn. She stepped closer. You said you wanted to be an architect once. Why can't you be that now? Because men like me don't get second chances, Zuri. We make our choices, and we live with them. That's not true. Everyone gets to choose, every single day, who they want to be. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and she saw something crack in his carefully constructed walls. Is that what you did? After your brother died? You chose who you wanted to be. I'm still choosing, she admitted. Every day? Some days I choose to be brave. Some days I choose to hide. But it's always a choice. Hyun-woo reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and tucked a strand of wind-blown hair behind her ear. His hand lingered near her face, and Zuri's breath caught. The ocean roared behind them, but all she could hear was her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. I can't stop thinking about you, Hyun-woo said, his voice barely above a whisper. From the moment you slipped me that note, you've been in my head. The way you refused my money. The way you looked at me like I was just a man, not a monster. The way you're looking at me right now. How am I looking at you? Like you see someone worth saving. Zuri's hand came up to cover his, still resting against her cheek. Everyone deserves to be seen as human, Hyun-woo. Even you. He leaned in, and for a heartbeat, she thought he might kiss her. She wasn't sure if she wanted him to, or if she'd pull away. But her phone buzzed insistently in her pocket, breaking the moment. Grace's name flashed on the screen with a text. 30-minute check-in. You alive? Zuri stepped back, suddenly aware of how close they'd been standing. I told my friend I'd check in. Of course. Hyun-woo's hand dropped to his side, and his mask slipped back into place. I should get you home. It's late. They drove back to Seoul in silence, but it was different now, charged with everything unsaid between them. When he pulled up to her apartment building, Zuri hesitated before getting out. Thank you for showing me the ocean, she said. Thank you for coming. He gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. Can I see you again? I don't know if that's wise. I'm not asking if it's wise. I'm asking if you want to. Zuri looked at him. This complicated, dangerous, lonely man who'd somehow worked his way past her defenses. Yes, she admitted. I want to. But Hyun-woo, I need you to understand something. I'm not interested in your world. The power, the money, the violence, I want no part of it. I know. And I won't be someone you keep hidden away. I won't be a secret. I wouldn't ask you to be. Then we take this slow. Real dates. Real conversations. No more grand gestures or paid-off debts. Just two people getting to know each other. A genuine smile crossed his face. I can do that. She got out of the car, then leaned back through the window. And Hyun-woo, you should smile more. It suits you. For the next 2 weeks, they fell into an unexpected rhythm. Coffee on Tuesday mornings before Zuri's classes. Late-night phone calls where they talked about everything and nothing. A walk through Namsan Park on Sunday afternoon, where Hyun-woo wore a baseball cap and sunglasses and looked almost normal. He met her students once when he picked her up from work. The children swarmed him with questions. Are you teacher Zuri's boyfriend? Little Minji asked. Hyun-woo looked at Zuri, something warm in his eyes. I'm trying to be. Do you love her? Taeho demanded. I'm working on that too. The kids giggled, and Zuri's heart did something complicated in her chest. This version of Hyun-woo, patient with children, willing to be vulnerable, genuinely trying to be better, was harder to resist than any grand gesture could have been. But reality has a way of intruding on fairy tales. Zuri first noticed she was being followed on a Wednesday. Same car behind her on the subway platform that had been outside her school. Same man in a dark jacket she'd seen near her apartment building the night before. She told herself she was being paranoid. Seoul was a city of 10 million people. Coincidences happened. Then her apartment was broken into. Nothing was taken. Her laptop, her small amount of cash, her passport were all untouched. But things had been moved. Her drawers had been searched. Someone had been through her belongings, looking for something. Zuri called the police, but they were dismissive. No forced entry, nothing stolen, probably just imagining things. She knew better. Someone was watching her. Someone wanted her scared. She didn't call Hyun-woo. She told herself it wasn't his problem, that involving him would only make things worse. But he showed up at her apartment that evening anyway, with Lee Tae-yong and a team of security experts. How did you know? She asked. I've had people watching your building since our first date, he admitted. Not to spy on you, to protect you. They reported the break-in. You've had me followed? Protected, he corrected firmly. It's not the same thing. Yes, it is. Zuri's fear transformed into anger. You can't just make unilateral decisions about my safety, Hyun-woo. I can when my enemies are targeting you because of me. His composure cracked, fear bleeding through. This is Ji-yoon's work. My ex-fiancée. She knows about you now. And whose fault is that? You're the one who kept showing up, who wouldn't take no for an answer, who pulled me into your world. I know. His voice dropped. I know, and I'm sorry. But Zuri, please, you need to let me protect you. By doing what? Posting guards outside my door? Following me everywhere? That's not protection. That's prison. Lee Tae-yong cleared his throat. Boss, we've swept the apartment. 3 cameras were planted. Professional grade. They've been watching her for at least 48 hours. The blood drained from Zuri's face. Cameras? Where? Bedroom, living room, bathroom. Taeyong's expression was apologetic. We've removed them all. Zuri sat down hard on her couch, feeling violated and terrified in equal measure. Hyun-woo sat beside her, close but not touching. You need to leave Korea, he said quietly. Tonight. I'll arrange everything. New identity, protection in the States, enough money to start over anywhere you want. No. Zuri, please. I said no. She looked at him. I'm not running because you can't handle your psychotic ex-fiancé. And I'm not letting you face this alone. This isn't your fight. You made it mine when you kept showing up at my door. When you took me to see the ocean. When you smiled at my students and told them you were trying to be my boyfriend. She grabbed his hand. I'm not running, Hyun-woo. But I'm also not going to be your victim. So either we figure this out together, or you walk away right now. He stared at their joined hands, then brought hers to his lips. I'm already in too deep to walk away. Then we face this together. What Zuri didn't know was that across the city, in a sleek high-rise office, Park Jun was watching surveillance footage with cold calculation. So this is the American waitress who saved him, Jun said, studying Zuri's face on the screen. What's so special about her? Choi Sang-woo, leader of the Chonghanga faction, leaned back in his chair. Does it matter? She's his weakness now. We can use her to draw him out. He's had women before. This one is different. Ji-yoon's perfectly manicured nails tapped against her wine glass. He looks at her like she matters. Like she's more than just another transaction. All the better for us. A man in love makes mistakes. Ji-yoon's smile was sharp as broken glass. Then let's give Kim Hyun-woo something to love and lose. 3 days later, Zuri was leaving her language academy when a white van pulled up beside her. Before she could scream, before she could run, strong hands grabbed her and a cloth pressed over her mouth. The chemical smell made her head swim, her vision blur. Don't fight, a voice said in Korean. It'll be easier if you don't fight. Zuri fought anyway. She kicked, thrashed, bit down on someone's hand. Heard cursing, felt a sharp pain in her ribs. But the chemical was too strong, her limbs too heavy. The world faded to black as she was dragged into the van. When she woke, she was tied to a chair in what looked like an abandoned warehouse. Her head throbbed, her mouth tasted like copper, and her ribs screamed with every breath. One eye was swollen nearly shut. Ah, you're awake. Good. Park Ji-yoon stepped into view, and Zuri understood immediately why Hyun-woo had agreed to marry her. She was stunning, porcelain skin, perfect features, designer clothes that probably cost more than Zuri made in a year. But her eyes were empty, cruel. You're probably wondering why you're here, Jun said in perfect English. Let me guess, Zuri croaked. You're going to use me to get to Hyun-woo. Smart and brave. I can see why he's fascinated. Jun circled her slowly. But let me tell you something about Kim Hyun-woo. He doesn't love. He doesn't feel. I was engaged to him for 2 years, and in all that time, he never once looked at me the way he looks at you in these photos. She held up her phone, showing surveillance pictures of Hyun-woo and Zuri at the beach, in the park, outside her apartment. In every photo, he was looking at Zuri like she hung the moon. He's using you, Jun continued. Playing the role of reformed criminal, pretending to want a normal life. But men like him don't change. They can't. You don't know him, Zuri said. Jun laughed. I know him better than anyone. I know he's cold and calculating and incapable of real emotion. I know he chose power over love every single time. I know. You know the mask he wears, Zuri interrupted. The armor he built to survive. But you never bothered to look underneath it. And you have. Yes. Despite her fear, despite her pain, Zuri met Ji-yoon's eyes. I've seen the man who drives to the ocean at midnight because it's the only place he feels free. Ji-yoon's expression hardened. How poetic, and how utterly naive. You think you can save him with your small-town American optimism? You think love conquers all. She leaned in close, her breath cold against Zuri's face. I'll tell you what love gets you in this world. Betrayed, broken, and buried. Is that what happened to you? Zuri asked quietly. Did you love him? Really love him? For just a moment, something cracked in Ji-yoon's perfect facade. Pain, raw and real. I gave him everything. My family's connections, my loyalty, my future. And he gave me nothing but cold politeness and business arrangements. So this is about revenge. This is about teaching him what it feels like to lose something that actually matters. Ji-yoon straightened, composure restored. He never cared when I walked away. But you? He'll come running to save you. And when he does, both of you will die. He won't come alone, Zuri said, though her heart hammered with fear. Oh, I'm counting on that. Choi Sang-woo has wanted Hyun-woo's territory for years. This little trap will eliminate my ex-fiancé, and clear the way for new leadership in Seoul's underworld. Ji-yoon smiled. You should feel honored. Your death will reshape the entire criminal landscape of South Korea. She walked away, leaving Zuri alone in the dark warehouse. Zuri's wrists were bound so tightly her hands were numb. Her ribs throbbed with every breath, probably cracked from the struggle. But her mind raced, searching for options, for escape routes, for anything. She thought about Marcus, her baby brother, and how she'd felt so helpless watching him die in that hospital. She thought about her mother, who'd already lost one child. She thought about her students, who'd drawn her pictures and called her Teacher Beautiful. And she thought about Hyun-woo, who'd looked at her on that beach like she was the first real thing he'd seen in years. I'm not dying in this warehouse, she whispered to herself. Not today. Across the city, Hyun-woo's phone buzzed with a video message. His blood turned to ice as he watched Zuri bound to a chair, Ji-yoon's voice narrating. Champa Warehouse, South District. Come alone, or she dies. You have 2 hours. It's a trap, Lee Tae-yong said immediately. Obviously, Hyun-woo was already loading guns, strapping on a shoulder holster. His face was expressionless, but Tae-yong had known him long enough to recognize the cold fury underneath. We should bring everyone. Hit them with overwhelming force. She said come alone. And you believe her? Boss, they'll kill you the second you walk in. Probably. Hyun-woo checked his weapon with practiced efficiency. But if there's even a 1% chance that coming alone saves Zuri, I'll take it. You're in love with her. It wasn't a question, but Hyun-woo answered anyway. Yes. Since when? Since she looked at me like I was worth saving. He met Tae-yong's eyes. I've spent 10 years building this empire, and I'd burn it all down for her. Does that make me weak? It makes you human. Tae-yong pulled out his own weapon. Which is why I'm not letting you go alone. Neither are the others. Tae-yong, you can fire me later. Right now, we're getting her back. Within 30 minutes, they had a plan. Hyun-woo would walk in alone as demanded, buying time. Tae-yong and a team of 15 would infiltrate through the warehouse's back entrances. And Hyun-woo had made one additional call to a detective who owed him a favor, providing evidence of Ji-yoon's embezzlement from his companies and her conspiracy with the Chonghanga faction. If I die, Hyun-woo told Tae-yong, make sure she gets out. Get Zuri to safety. Put her on a plane to America. Give her enough money to start over. Tell her yourself. When this is over. The Champa warehouse loomed against the night sky, a skeleton of rusted metal and broken windows beside the Han River. Hyun-woo approached with his hands raised, no visible weapons. Kim Hyun-woo. Choi Sang-woo's voice echoed through the empty space. Right on time. And alone, just as requested. I'm impressed. Where is she? Lights flickered on, revealing the warehouse's interior. 20 armed men surrounded the space, weapons trained on Hyun-woo. And in the center, Zuri was still bound to the chair, one eye swollen shut, dried blood on her lip. Their eyes met across the distance. Hyun-woo saw her fear, but also her defiance. She was terrified but unbroken. I'm here, Hyun-woo called to her. It's going to be okay. Ji-yoon emerged from the shadows, elegant even in this derelict space. How touching. The Ice King has a heart after all. Let her go, Ji-yoon. Your fight is with me. Oh, but this is so much more satisfying. Ji-yoon circled Zuri's chair. Do you know what it's like, watching the man you were supposed to marry look at another woman with actual emotion? With real feeling. I'm sorry, Hyun-woo said, and meant it. I'm sorry I couldn't be what you needed. I'm sorry I wasted your time with a relationship that was never going to work. Sorry. Ji-yoon laughed bitterly. Sorry doesn't fix anything. Sorry doesn't erase 2 years of cold shoulders and empty conversations. Sorry doesn't. You're right, Hyun-woo interrupted. It doesn't. Nothing I say will fix what I did to you. But Zuri had nothing to do with us. She's innocent in this. She stopped being innocent the moment she saved your life. Ji-yoon pulled out a gun, pressing it to Zuri's temple. Now she gets to pay the price for your sins. Hyun-woo's composure finally cracked. Don't. Please. I'll give you anything. My companies, my territory, my life. Just let her go. Your life? Choi Sang-woo stepped forward. Now that's an interesting offer. The warehouse's back doors exploded inward. Tae-yong and his team poured in, weapons raised. Chaos erupted. Gunfire, shouting, the crack of bullets against metal. Hyun-woo dove for cover, drawing his concealed weapon. Ji-yoon's gun swung away from Zuri toward the incoming team. In that split second of distraction, Zuri made her move. She'd been working at her bonds while they talked, using the rough edge of the chair to fray the rope. Now she threw her weight sideways, chair and all, crashing to the ground. The chair splintered on impact, freeing her hands. Pain exploded through her cracked ribs, but adrenaline pushed her forward. She scrambled behind a stack of crates as bullets flew overhead. Hyun-woo fought his way toward her, taking down 2 of Sang-woo's men. Zuri, stay down. Little late for that advice. She grabbed a piece of broken metal pipe, her waitressing tray balancing skills oddly useful as she swung it at a man rushing toward her. The pipe connected with his knee, and he went down hard. Hyun-woo reached her, pulling her behind a concrete pillar. Are you hurt? Ribs are cracked, face is a mess, but I'm alive. She grabbed his jacket. You came for me. Of course I came for you. He cupped her bruised face gently. I'd burn the world down for you. That's very sweet, but can we maybe survive this first? Despite everything, he laughed. Fair point. The firefight continued around them. Taeyong was a whirlwind of efficient violence, protecting Hyun-woo's flank. But they were still outnumbered, and Sang-woo's men had better positions. June appeared above them on a catwalk, gun trained on Zuri. You can't have her. She's mine. Time seemed to slow. Hyun-woo moved to shield Zuri with his body. Jiun's finger tightened on the trigger. And then police sirens wailed outside, growing rapidly closer. Police. Everyone freeze. Dozens of officers swarmed the warehouse. Sang-woo's men dropped their weapons, hands raised. Choi Sang-woo himself tried to run, but was tackled by 3 officers. Jiun stood on the catwalk, gun still pointed at Zuri, tears streaming down her perfect face. This wasn't how it was supposed to end. It's over, Jiun, Hyun-woo called up to her. Put down the gun. Over? My life is over. My family will disown me. I'll go to prison. Everything I built, everything I am, gone. Then rebuild, Zuri said, stepping out from behind Hyun-woo despite his protests. You're young, you're smart, you're strong. This doesn't have to define you. You don't understand. In my world, there's no second chances. That's what he thought too. Zuri gestured to Hyun-woo. But he's learning that there's always a choice. Every single day, you choose who you want to be. Jiun's hand wavered, the gun shaking. For a long moment, no one moved. Then slowly, she lowered the weapon and set it on the catwalk railing. I choose not to be a murderer, she whispered. Police officers moved in, handcuffing June and leading her away. As she passed Hyun-woo, she stopped. I hope she's worth it, June said quietly. I hope she's worth throwing away everything you built. Hyun-woo looked at Zuri, bruised, bloodied, but alive and looking at him like he'd hung the moon. She is. The aftermath was chaos. Paramedics swarmed the warehouse, tending to injuries on both sides. Zuri sat on the back of an ambulance while a medic examined her ribs, wrapped her torso in bandages, and put ice on her swollen eye. Hyun-woo stood nearby, refusing his own treatment until he knew she was okay. 3 cracked ribs, severe bruising, minor concussion. The paramedic reported in Korean, which Hyun-woo translated for Zuri. You need to rest for at least 2 weeks. No strenuous activity. I have classes to teach, Zuri protested. You have a concussion, Hyun-woo said firmly. Your students will survive without you for a few days. Detective Park approached them, notebook in hand. He looked tired but satisfied. Miss Smith, I need your statement about the kidnapping. And Mr. Kim, we'll need to discuss your involvement in tonight's events. My lawyers will be in touch, Hyun-woo said smoothly. I'm sure they will. Detective Park's expression was knowing. Though I have to say, the evidence you provided on Park Ji-hoon's embezzlement and conspiracy charges was remarkably thorough. Almost like you'd been building a case for months. I believe in being prepared. I'm sure you do. The detective turned to Zuri. You're lucky to be alive, Miss Smith. Park Ji-hoon and Choi Sang-woo were planning to kill both of you tonight. I know. Zuri's hand found Hyun-woo's, gripping tight. But I also knew he'd come for me. Even though you told him not to, Hyun-woo muttered. Especially because I told him not to. She smiled despite her split lip. You're predictably heroic that way. Detective Park shook his head. I'll need both of you at the station tomorrow for full statements. But for tonight, get some rest. You've earned it. As the detective walked away, Lee Taeyong approached with his arm in a sling. Boss, the men are asking about next steps. Do we retaliate against what's left of the Chonghanga faction? No. Hyun-woo's answer was immediate and firm. Taeyong blinked in surprise. No? They tried to kill you. They kidnapped. No retaliation. No revenge. No escalation. Hyun-woo looked at Zuri, then back to his second-in-command. I'm done, Taeyong. With all of it. Done? Boss, what are you talking about? I'm stepping back from operations. You'll take over as head of the organization. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life. Hyun-woo's voice was steady, certain. I've spent 10 years building an empire on violence and fear and blood. And for what? So I could drive to the ocean at midnight because it's the only time I feel human? So I could live in constant paranoia, trusting no one, connecting with no one. Boss, I'm tired, Taeyong. I'm tired of being the Ice King. I'm tired of the loneliness. He squeezed Zuri's hand. Someone recently taught me that we choose who we want to be every single day. And I choose to be more than this. Taeyong looked between them, understanding dawning. You're choosing her. I'm choosing myself. The version of me that existed before my father died. The one who wanted to build things instead of destroy them. The one who believed in beauty and purpose and connection. Hyun-woo smiled slightly. She just reminded me that version was still in here somewhere. And what about the hotels? The legitimate businesses? Those I'll keep. Maybe actually try to run them the right way. Hyun-woo clapped Taeyong on the shoulder. You'll be a better leader than I ever was. You actually care about the people who work for us. I learned that from you, boss. Then prove me right. 2 weeks later, Zuri stood in front of her classroom again, her ribs still tender but healing. Her students had made her welcome back cards, and little Minji had drawn a picture of Zuri as a superhero fighting bad guys. Teacher was so brave. Taeho announced to the class. My dad saw it on the news. Teacher stopped bad people. I didn't stop anyone, Zuri corrected gently. I just survived a scary situation. The real heroes were the police officers who saved us. But when class ended and Zuri walked outside, Hyun-woo was waiting. He wore jeans and a simple sweater, no bodyguards in sight, and held a small bouquet of flowers. Nothing extravagant, just daisies from a street vendor. How was class? He asked. Good. Minji thinks I'm a superhero now. Minji is a smart kid. He offered his arm, and they walked together through the streets of Seoul. I have something to show you. He led her to a small office building in Gangnam. The sign outside read, Kim Architecture and Design. Zuri stopped, reading the sign twice. You reopened your father's firm? Not reopened. Started fresh. Hyun-woo pulled out a key, unlocking the door. I hired 3 architects, 2 designers, and an office manager. We have our first client next week, a community center in Incheon. The office was modest but bright, with drafting tables and computer stations and a wall covered in architectural sketches. In the corner sat a vintage desk that looked lovingly restored. That was my father's, Hyun-woo said quietly. I had it in storage for years. Couldn't bear to look at it. But now, he ran his hand over the polished wood. Now it feels right. Like I'm honoring who he wanted me to be instead of who circumstances made me. Zuri wrapped her arms around him from behind, careful of her ribs. I'm proud of you. I'm not done yet. Still have to formally separate from the organization, make sure Taeyong has everything he needs, settle some final accounts. He turned in her embrace. But I'm getting there. Slowly. Slow is good. Slow means you're thinking about it, not just running away. I had a good teacher. He kissed her forehead, mindful of the fading bruise around her eye. How are you feeling? Really? Sore? Tired? A little scared sometimes when I think about what could have happened. She met his eyes. But mostly grateful. For you. For being alive. For second chances. Second chances. Hyun-woo smiled. I like the sound of that. They spent the evening planning the office layout, dreaming about future projects, talking about the kind of buildings Hyun-woo wanted to design, spaces that brought people together instead of keeping them apart. Zuri shared stories about her students, about her plans to maybe get her master's degree in education, about possibly staying in Korea longer than her contract. Would you stay for me? Hyun-woo asked as they locked up the office. I'd stay for myself, Zuri corrected. Because I've built a life here. Because I love my students and my friends and this complicated, beautiful city. Because I'm happy. She took his hand. But yes, you're part of that happiness. A big part. Just big? Not enormous? Not life-changing. She laughed. Don't fish for compliments. It's unbecoming. I'm trying to be charming. You're trying too hard. They walked through Seoul as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. No bodyguards, no danger, just two people navigating the evening crowds like anyone else. At a street food cart, Hyun-woo bought them tteokbokki, and they sat on a bench eating spicy rice cakes and watching the world go by. Is this what normal feels like? Hyun-woo asked. I think so. Is it what you expected? It's better. He wiped a bit of sauce from her chin. Messier, but better. Grace called while they were walking back to Zuri's apartment. Please tell me you're not still dating the Mafia Boss. Ex-Mafia Boss, Zuri corrected. He's an architect now. An architect. Right. Because career changes are that simple in the criminal underworld. He's trying, Grace. Really trying. He opened a firm, hired staff, everything. And you believe him? That he's really done with all that? Zuri looked at Hyun-woo, who was examining a display of architectural magazines in a convenience store window with genuine interest. Yeah, I do. Then I'm happy for you, girl. Just be careful, okay? Hearts don't heal as fast as ribs. I know. But as weeks turned into months, Zuri watched Hyun-woo transform. He threw himself into architecture with the same intensity he'd once applied to his empire. His first project, the community center, broke ground in spring. He hired former members of his organization who wanted out, giving them legitimate jobs and second chances. He still had nightmares sometimes, waking up in a cold sweat, reaching for guns that weren't there. Zuri would hold him, remind him he was safe, that the past was behind them. And slowly, the nightmares became less frequent. 6 months after the warehouse, they were having dinner at a small restaurant when Hyun-woo pulled out a box. Not a ring box, something larger. What's this? Zuri asked. Open it. Inside was a key and a set of blueprints. Zuri unfolded them, her breath catching. It was a design for a house, modern but warm, with large windows overlooking the ocean and a studio space perfect for an office or classroom. I bought that beach, Hyun-woo said. The one where we had our first real conversation. I'm building us a house there. Us, if you want. I know it's presumptuous, and we can take our time, and you don't have to decide now. Zuri kissed him, cutting off his nervous rambling. When they pulled apart, she was smiling. I want. Yeah. She studied the blueprints again. But I want a bigger kitchen, and a garden, and maybe a dog. Done, and absolutely done. They spent the rest of dinner planning their future. What kind of dog, what flowers for the garden, how many bedrooms for when family visited. It was normal and mundane and absolutely perfect. A year after the night that changed everything, Zuri stood in front of a new classroom. Not at the language academy, but at a university where she was teaching English literature while working on her master's degree. Hyun-woo sat in the back row for her first lecture, grinning like a proud parent. After class, they drove to the beach house, now complete, with the big kitchen and the garden and a golden retriever named Marcus who bounded up to greet them. Happy? Hyun-woo asked, pulling her close as they watched the sunset from their porch. Incredibly. Zuri leaned into him. You? More than I ever thought possible. He kissed the top of her head. Thank you. For what? For slipping me that note. For seeing someone worth saving. For teaching me that it's never too late to choose who you want to be. Thank you for showing up at my door. For being stubborn. For choosing to be brave enough to change. They stood there as the sun disappeared into the ocean, two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely circumstances and built something real from the ashes of their old lives. The Ice King had melted. The waitress had found her purpose. And together, they learned that sometimes the greatest act of courage is simply choosing to be human. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. This story of Zuri and Hyun-woo shows us that love can bloom in the most unexpected places. If you enjoyed their journey, please give this video a thumbs up. It really helps us reach more people who love these kinds of stories. Drop a comment below and let us know. Would you have slipped that note? Would you have given someone like Hyun-woo a second chance? We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you're notified every time we upload a new story. We've got so many more incredible tales coming your way. Their story teaches us that redemption is always possible, that people can change when they find someone who sees their true worth, and that love, real love, isn't about grand gestures or perfect circumstances. It's about choosing each other every single day, even when it's hard, even when it's scary, even when the whole world says it's impossible. It's about having the courage to leave behind who you were expected to be and embrace who you actually are. And most importantly, it reminds us that sometimes saving someone else's life can be the first step to saving your own.